Hello YouTube. There is a small village of Kalachi in the Isil district of the Akmola region of Kazakhstan. It would have been unremarkable if not for the mysterious mass illness that befell its residents in March of 2013. Since then, scientists have been trying to understand why people of different ages suddenly fall asleep in this village for a period of 2 days to 2 weeks. The authors of numerous studies offer a variety of explanations for the mysterious sleeping sickness. Now the village of Kalachi and the nearby urban-type settlement of Krasnogorsk are in disrepair for a number of reasons. In the 1960s, life there was in full swing. Thousands of the Komsomol, that's Young Communist League organization in the USSR, so thousands of its members came to the Kazakh steppes, plains, to develop virgin land on the orders of the Communist Party and the government of the Soviet Union. They were accompanied by miners. The extraction of uranium ore from a nearby deposit began. Then the Gorbachev's perestroika broke out and the once united country collapsed, meaning USSR. Many enterprises turned out to be unprofitable and the employees left to various destinations. From the 1960s to the 1990s, uranium ore was mined near Krasnogorsk, but after the collapse of the USSR, the mines were closed and mothballed. Today, 130 people live in Krasnogorsk and about 550 people or so live in Kalachi. Since then, the number of residents in these two localities has only decreased. After the locals discovered a strange sleeping sickness, the authorities of the country began a program of mass resettlement of local people. For these purposes, the government of Kazakhstan has allocated 152 million tenge. But not all people want to leave for more prosperous cities and villages in their region. One thing the officials did not take into the account is that the Kalachi are mostly inhabited by Russian conquerors of the Virgin Lands, who arrived here as the young enthusiasts of the Soviet grandiose plans, and they're almost impossible to tear away from the land where they spent their youth, and that's understandable. There's almost no work in the village. People survive at the expense of pensions and household farming. According to Russian journalist Yuri Snegiryov, the first victim was a 10-year-old boy Vova, who plunged into a long, inexplicable sleep, and it was back in 2010. 2 days later, the child woke up and no one paid attention to this case. And when this happened to Aunt Vera, who lives on the other side of the village, the doctors decided that she had a stroke, but the diagnosis was not confirmed. The alarm was raised only in March 2013 when the disease became widespread. Saleswomen from the local market, elderly conquerors of the Virgin Lands, and school children suddenly fell asleep. They usually recovered after 6 to 7 days and complained of feeling unwell. Some spoke of weakness, partial memory loss, and foggy head, while others had visual hallucinations. Some doctors even had to tie them to the bed so that a person in semi-delirious state would not have harmed himself or herself. During the 2016 outbreak of the strange disease, the number of victims exceeded 130 people. Some people fell into a prolonged sleep several times. At first, the perplexed doctors of the Kizilsky district hospital even admitted the possibility of mass alcohol or drug intoxication of the villagers, but this hypothesis was not confirmed. Then people were examined for various infections and viruses. Again, nothing. There were no inflammatory processes in the body or injuries in those who fell asleep. All the affected or impacted residents of Kalachi and neighboring Krasnogorsk and cases of the disease were recorded in that town. They were all given a preliminary diagnosis of encephalopathy of unclear etiology. As is known from the medical literature, this is an organic brain lesion that can be caused by a variety of factors, from hereditary to acquired. For example, this is a lack of B vitamins or various poisonings. People who fell asleep were given substances that stimulate the work of the brain vessels through IVs, and the patients woke up. Along the way, the doctors conducted a full examination of the victims. The head of the National Scientific Medical Center of Kazakhstan, Professor Abay Baygenjin, commenting on this case in the media, noted a whole bunch of different diseases found in the residents of the village of Kalachi. The doctor of medical sciences suggested that prolonged sleep was caused by a combination of anemia, diabetes, atherosclerotic vascular lesions, and other diseases. At the same time, such a condition could be provoked by some influence factor, which should be determined by specialists. Of course, first of all, scientists suspected that the cause of the mass sleeping sickness of the inhabitants was the flooded uranium mines and the radon gas escaping from there. Employees of the National Nuclear Center of Kazakhstan and representatives of the Semipalatinsk branch of the Kurchatov Institute came to the village. They drilled wells, took samples of water and soil. During the investigation, no elevated radiation was found in Kalachi. Many experts blame radon for the mysterious sleeping sickness. Among them is Leonid Rekhvanov, a professor of the Tomsk Polytechnic University, who suggested that the concentration of gas that fills uranium mines in the homes of rural residents depends on the season. Well, and the gas rises to the surface when the level of underground water changes. It rises in the spring or decreases in the autumn. It is no accident that in the autumn the disease among the residents of Kalachi is getting worse. The professor shared his conclusions with the journalist of Komsomolskaya Pravda, Sofia Sevastianova. Her article, Tomsk Scientists Proposed a Method to Combat Sleeping Sickness in the Village of Kalachi, was published in January of 2015. However, the radon version or hypothesis has its opponents. They claim that a relatively small excess of the concentration of this gas in the homes of the villagers could not have led to such consequences. According to scientists, radon does not affect the central nervous system of a person, although it can cause cancer with prolonged contact. In addition, closed uranium mines are scattered throughout Kazakhstan, and no cases of strange sleeping sickness have been recorded anywhere outside of Kalachi and the town. Then many scientists, having rehabilitated radon, suspected carbon monoxide in everything. The Novosti correspondent Dmitry Vinogradov, in his article Sleepy Village, mentioned that scientists of Kazakhstan are close to solving the mystery of the century. It was all published in May of 2015. And he cited the opinion of Deputy Director General for Radioecology of the National Nuclear Center of Kazakhstan, Sergei Lukashenko. In the samples from which they obtained, they found an increased content of carbon monoxide and hydrocarbon. The reason for the sleeping sickness he would formulate as follows: periodic inhalation of air with a low concentration of oxygen and an increased concentration of carbon monoxide and hydrocarbon. Each of these three components individually is almost within the normal range, and with the combination of three factors, a classic synergistic effect occurs. That's what the scientists suggested. However, not all experts agreed with this hypothesis. They argued that in large cities, the carbon monoxide content in the atmosphere is much higher than in the homes of residents of the village of Kalachi, where the CO is produced. Since people are heated by coal, in addition, in other localities, this fuel is used for heating homes, and cases of mass sleeping sickness have not been identified anywhere else. After learning about this hypothesis of scientists from the National Nuclear Center, medical workers organized a spectrophotometric study of the blood of residents of Kalachi, but found no traces of toxic effects of carbon monoxide on their health. When people do not understand the cause of a phenomenon, they begin to make various guesses. The most fantastic hypothesis of sleeping sickness came among such experts, so to say. Someone claimed that Kalachi is an anomalous zone where aliens conduct their experiments on human beings. Someone suspected the secret experiments of Soviet scientists conducted in uranium mines. Allegedly, only a few decades later, the consequences of these scientific studies were reflected in local residents. Against this background, the version of mass or hypothesis of mass poisoning of people with insecticides used by local farmers looks much more plausible. In particular, we can talk about dust, which is still widely used to control various crop pests. DDT is a colorless, tasteless, and almost odorless crystalline chemical compound, an organochloride. Originally developed as an insecticide, it became infamous for its environmental impacts. In Russian, it's referred to as dust. Guess from the English word dust. In an interview with the Russian journalist Snegiryov, a resident of the village of Kalachi, Natalia Boyarinos, said that her son Rudik fell asleep twice. At the same time, he was snoring heavily. "Thank you to the doctors," she said. "It's scary. Well, imagine, what if he doesn't wake up? And all the signs of poisoning. He vomited some brown foam." The worried mother shared the details with the journalist. Now, the year of 2020, a group of Kazakh and American scientists came up with another hypothesis, poisoning of drinking water, which in turn gave answers to almost all the questions that scientists had about this case. A group from the University of Nazarbayev decided to investigate the issue of the chemical poisoning of water. It is assumed that most likely source of contamination could be located near the abandoned uranium mines. They were abandoned in the 1980s. Professor Crape, head of the research group, noted that some chemical waste of substance could have been dumped into them. He is an epidemiologist. He doesn't work in a chemical plant and he doesn't work in military factories, but he's trying to save lives. Using the information available on the internet, he and his colleagues found that Pavlodar, neighboring with Akmola region, was one of the places where chemicals were developed for other or military goals. And what were those chemicals stored in? Were very often in special barrels. Deep down, where there is a lot of moisture, the lower shell can start to rust from below, start to leak. The chemical seeps into water, and if it is underground water, eventually it reaches the people in the village. Why do some people fall asleep more often and several times, and others less often? Maybe some people just get a higher concentration of the chemical, and others a lower one, according to the scientists, and they voice their assumptions. The hypothesis about the chemicals that got into the water seems to answer the question of the cause of the strange sleep. The researchers found that the alleged chemicals can be destroyed at the temperature of 1 degree Celsius, and the outbreaks of sleeping sickness were observed just during the cold weather and disappeared in the summer. In conclusion, the professor, virologist, explained that perhaps during the period from 2000 to 2015, the chemicals that were in barrels managed to completely seep into the water. However, the scientists emphasized that this is not yet a definite answer, but only a hypothesis. So far, the conclusion is that this is probably a chemical substance that most likely gets to residents through drinking water in different concentrations. That's how they summed up the observations and discoveries. Well, to confirm this hypothesis, scientists need to go down into one of the abandoned uranium mines. But for people, such a descent is very dangerous because of the threat of collapse of the old deposit. Therefore, experts from the School of Engineering of Nazarbayev University suggest launching a drone into the mines. Now the remaining residents of the village of Kalachi are more concerned about serious problems with water supply that have come up due to the coronavirus. So, aliens and extraterrestrials should not be blamed for human recklessness. Yes, the question of the cause of the sleeping sickness is still open. And of course we should not, again, blame civilizations that come and visit us, because, first of all, please look at other videos about Kazakhstan and its tremendous UFO encounters and observations history. You will find it in my channels about Central Asia. I have a number of videos. It's a very interesting country, as is Uzbekistan. And I have learned through my research that there are cases when so-called aliens or extraterrestrials actually help Earthlings diminish the impact of our stupidity and playing with ecology, military research and development that causes tremendous ecological impact. And of course, industrial contamination and other things. This was the case with, for example, Chernobyl and a few other ecological disasters in the Soviet Union, and the observation of alien craft around. And you can find it all in the videos. But it's not only the Soviet Union, the whole Earth is basically getting contaminated, and hopefully we will do something serious about this one day. But again, we don't know the cause of that strange sleeping sickness, and who knows if it will not come back again. Thank you for your attention. If you can support my research, please do so. You will find how to do it. Please subscribe to my video, please tell others, and I hope to speak to you again soon.